Hello today. How are you guys? This is Solaris Modalis and my friend Alex Clark.
Hello.
And we are here for another video of an interesting phenomenon. And what I like to call this phenomenon is the 4D people phenomenon. But basically, we've talked in the past about having clairvoyance or seeing energy or things existing in energy, and that both the human operating system is upgrading, where we're raising our consciousness and being able to perceive more, and our technology is upgrading as well. So there's an effect that I captured recently when I was watching television. And I noticed that if I looked at the television at a certain angle, a very interesting effect happened around the people that were shown on the TV. And what I noticed is that I was seeing energy, sort of like seeing an aura, but it was energy that sort of felt like it was showing potentially interesting information about that person or that event or the situation. So I wanted to share these here with you, and Alex and I were going to talk through them.
Yeah, it's also important to note, Susan has a certain type of vision that is much more energetic. I have an auric vision, so I've always seen auras around people, and when it's something that is easily taught to people once you explain to them how the eye focuses. But when giving people lessons and helping them to practice, I always say, go look at some old videotape, because the aura is very strong. And especially against a dark background, you can see it, and then you start to see it in every day. But this is something a little bit interesting, a little bit more interesting than what I've seen before. So I was very happy when Susan got the intuitive hit to take the photographs and then to share them with me, because I always like to see cool stuff.
Yeah, it was interesting because I was standing there looking, and I just had to grab the camera and start taking photos because I knew something unusual was happening. I had the intuition and I followed it like we've talked about. And I just really quickly wanted to show an example of this from the blog that is along the lines of this topic. This is the article called The Blue Kachina that we've talked about before. But my point with the blue kachina, which here you see a sphere, here you see the sunlight, and here you see a really small blue object. And I've mentioned before that my feeling is that this is a cosmic body, but my feeling is also that we're able to perceive energy, and then that energy manifests into actual physical form that we haven't been able to perceive before because of the whole of humanity raising consciousness and all the other reasons why that might be. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to show a photo of that from the blog, and here's a close-up of it.
And that's why it's always important to listen to your intuition. When you get a hit to do something, do it. You never know what's going to come of it, but a lot of the times it's like, knock, knock, knock. This is important. Check it out.
Yeah, so let's look at the photos. There we go. Actually, let's start with this one. This is sort of a regular guy. Now, I basically was watching the news, so on a local TV station, and just started snapping photos. So these were taken over 2 or 3 minutes, and the number of images that flash through TV changes images like every 2 to 3 seconds now. So the number of images that flashed by was a lot of different ones. So I just want to say we'll post the fair use statement down at the bottom of this, but we're using these images under that application. So, but you can see here sort of here's a man, and you see I call this technology, the way that TVs have upgraded in their technology, there's a glowy effect. Alex will probably call it something more science-based, but there's a glowy effect. And this person had a very blue colored jacket on. So that's what that blue is. But you can see that the way the technology represents the human being on the television screen now, with this particular type of TV technology, it has an interesting effect that you can kind of catch if you're looking at various angles.
Yeah, and also understand that most televisions have upgraded from tube technology. You remember your mom and dad's big console television that weighed about 2,000 pounds. And now, we've got flat screens, so the technology has upgraded, and the number of color pixels available has gone up very significantly. It's not exactly at the level of the, normal visual color ability of your optic nerves, but it's getting close to being extremely high definition. So
yeah, so here there was cowboys riding bulls for some reason on part of the news. So here you can see another person, a human being, and how they're lit up, and how the rest of the scene is lit up in places in the back. Here is this is an animal. There's a bull here and a person riding this animal. Here's another animal. There's a dog. So these are some of the ones that were more, here's a person and you can see, see their eyes, see their hair, glowy. Here's another person. Where the body openings are tends to be where the glowiness comes through, glowing light.
It's interesting.
It is interesting because some people are glowing in different ways on some of these images, and I just found that interesting.
What's that black spidery thing?
I don't know what that was.
Just gonna say, yes, the light is hitting these two people in a different way. So understand, you're in a studio, so things are lighted, but it looks like the light is coming in towards the profile of that woman. Wouldn't the woman in the background, then her face also be lit up with the same characteristic lighting, and we're not seeing that? So that's a very interesting shot right there.
It is, yeah. And that's, let's just talk about that for a moment. And I'll put it back on my Solaris while we're doing that. It's interesting because, we talk about people being starseeds, or people being from different places, or people having different color auras, or people having attachments with different types of energy histories. And, for someone who can read energy or is intuitive, they can sense these things. And when I work with people and I see past lives, often I will see this kind of energy. Now I will see it with permission. I always have permission for that, because it's an important rule to follow for many reasons. But what we're saying here is that the technology is now giving us the opportunity to reveal some of these things. And I know, Alex, you've talked about the fact that, cameras can clearly there are cameras that can take pictures of auras and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Currently in photography, a lot of people will go to, a crystal fair or a specific store, that deals with metaphysical items, and get a picture of their aura taken. And some of the representations in the past, I haven't actually seen one lately. It would be interesting to see if it's different, but you may get different bursts of color based on where the old school chakras used to be, because those are vibrating as well. Isn't that interesting? But the way I view auras is very much like if you took your hand and you put it up against a white background and you just stared at it for a while and then all of a sudden you moved it, you'll see an after image. Well, what I see is an after image that's behind the person or around the person, and it's a glowing energy. I mean, we see pictures, paintings of holy people back in the day, and they all have halos around them. Well, every person I see their halo. So they were not painting something to say these people are more holy. They're saying their aura was really big. Okay. So it's very interesting. And especially this area was, related to the crown chakra. So it is where the spiritual energy tends to settle and the rest becomes more body oriented.
It could also be that a couple thousand years ago, people had this ability turned on more than we do today. The other thing I wanted to say is that for someone who perceives or reads energy, I think there's there's a strong comparison with reading body language, or facial expressions, or those kind of physical ways of non-verbally communicating. But that and we talked about permissions before, but that there is a certain kind of aspect of there being the windscreen that Alex and I talk about. Where like I'm wearing blue, I have glasses, I have my necklace on, so with eyes someone can look at me and see what I look like. For an energy, someone who's sensitive like this, you can perceive the energy without sort of having any kind of invasive energy into the person's space.
I mean, we've talked about this before. It's almost as if every person presents an avatar. This is what I look like. This is kind of how you make me feel. So we talk about just touching the field, not diving in. So that's important, and we'll get into more detail on that, I think, in the future, because it's so important.
I like that the avatar presentation that you talked about, because to me, what I find is that, is that people feel an association with a particular, and I'm thinking people who love like fairies or elves or the Tolkien stories, and then you'll see that in their field, or people who are close with certain types of star beings, and you'll see that in the energy field. So I think that avatar tends to present, when there's a situation where I'm working with someone, the issue that comes, the avatar will present that issue. That'll be, or that lifetime will be reflected so that it can appear so that we can work on it. But that people's hearts, or what they're aligned with, also appears in the field, unless they're able to, shield that for some reason, which, it's okay to have privacy. Okay, so
different options available. Not everybody does exactly the same thing.
That's right. Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it's the variety of the universe, which we have permission for. Okay, so now let's look at. Now, I did also catch a few photos of President Trump, so let's go into that. Let's see here.
All right, so I'm going to take this one first, because it's interesting that in the other photographs you did not see as much of an aura around the person. Okay, so he has a very distinctive blue aura. Okay, blue relates to truth. We're not making any judgment calls here. We're just saying that this is an interesting phenomenon.
That's pretty darn bright blue.
And then there's essences of gold around the high heart, and some orange, which is passion. Gold, is about administration, so that's interesting. And you can research all these auric color definitions. I mean, there's tons of information out there on that, but it's very interesting to see that.
Yeah.
The truth to light, maybe. Who knows? I'm making no judgment calls. We're not political here.
We're not political at all, nor do want to make any comments like that. But the blue was so striking, Alex. I mean, it was just amazing to see that. And it was not, the other photos of the other people did not have that. And I thought that was so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Here we have it again, really.
Yes, very, very distinctive.
Yeah.
And also understand she's looking at this, she's taking the picture from an angle. So you're only seeing the light is warped in a certain direction. So you're going to see more of a one-sided example. Had she taken it straight on, you would have gotten a different representation. But that is not, I mean, you showed the picture of the man in the blue pullover, and you could see the pullover is blue. This is obvious energy that is hovering around the edge of his body. So
yes,
it's interesting. And do you want to talk a bit about this?
The statue
behind.
I will. And I just wanted to say that the exact point that you just brought up, the warping, that is what reveals. That is what reveals the energy, and you nailed it. I didn't talk about it, but that is my point. When you look directly straight on, you may not see this, but as you go and you look at an angle, that's when the glow or the aura or the energy starts to reveal itself. Is what I found in this particular situation. So the thing we noticed that was interesting was that Trump had this horsey, this man on this horse, which Alex kind of looked like a little bit like Teddy Roosevelt, which seems reasonable to me and it does have that feeling. But whatever it is, what's interesting to me here is the blue aura around the statue, because inanimate objects normally don't have that kind of an aura around them. Now, but inanimate objects can carry a lively consciousness, and a good example of these would be some of the Buddhist statues, which sing. If you have clairaudience, which I have experienced walking through a meditation store at a place where thousands of people go meditate, and looking up at it, looking and thinking, what is that noise, and realizing it is coming from a statue.
Yeah.
Okay, that was
I will note that objects made of natural elements like crystals definitely have much more sentient consciousness, and anybody who's touched one and has, some of their senses turned on. We all have the senses. It's just a matter of, how much practice you have. We'll feel that. And what my hit is on this is that whatever we're looking at is made of some sort of natural material. And metal, by the way, guys, is earth ore. So it's a natural material. So it could imbue some sort of energetic signature like that. The other objects in the background, don't have that hit. They're not projecting that kind of energy. So very interesting to capture this.
Yeah.
Yay, go Susan.
For me, I'm just going to add to what you said about the energy of the statue. For me, there's kind of a heart resonance. So that would also explain that aura. So I don't know if that's from Trump to what that statue represents, or that there's something about the energy of that statue that is very heart aligned in general. That's how I would say it, because it is unusual to have that bright blue like that. Anyway, so let's move on to a set of unusual photos that came up.
Really unusual.
They were really unusual. So we're a little overtime here on the video. We're trying to keep it to 15 minutes, but okay. So here's the first one. This was just very interesting. I just thought this was an interesting energy that this person has. Let's also look at this other one. Here's another one, a little unusual.
Ooh. Yeah, we bring your attention towards the eyes and also the ears.
Yeah, very interesting eyes that she has.
And it's even more distinctive there. And the hair, I would say, is interesting. The way the energy is very different from the physicality.
it's very interesting. So let's see, there's the last one. So now let's look at another slightly different type of presentation.
Okay,
so now I'm just going to give a little background of what this is. This is, for whatever reason, on the news, they flashed a picture of a store where guns are sold, I think that is, or something's being sold on these shelves. The human being, I believe, now you see here, there's the hand, is somewhere in here, okay? But I don't know if the people watching the video can see this. And here's an outlined version of what we see above the person.
Yeah, and just a note, we showed these pictures to a few other people who we would term not spiritual at the present moment. And they immediately said, "What's that humanoid?"
So
yeah.
I have Go
done back to the other picture, Susan,
without the outline.
Yeah. So what's interesting here to me is not only is there seem to be a representation of an edge. So if you look at towards the back wall, you see gun. The energy is very flat, and all of a sudden you see a warping of what's behind it, and it becomes three-dimensional. We talk about perspective all the time, right? So you can actually see what looks like the shape of a skull with a face pointing out, and even though the energy is transparent, towards the edge of the photograph, you can almost see the representation. Go down to the bottom.
Down here.
You can see the representation of a spinal cord.
Okay, I just have to say you said that at 2:22 p.m. on the 11th, 1:11 here.
Oh my God.
It's interesting.
Wow. So you see a representation of a spinal cord. So there's absolutely a body representation to this energy. I don't know what that means, but it was very strong for me when I saw it the first time. And like I said, we showed it to a few people who, are secretly spiritual. We'll just put it that
secretly
way.
Spiritual.
And look at that humanoid. Didn't say human. The word was humanoid.
Yeah, and I want to use non-judgment here because this entity, basically, that's being presents in this photo has a particular kind of, maybe somewhat, has an unusual look, maybe a somewhat scary look if you saw that, up close. But having done a lot of energy work both with working with people who have had issues with dark energy, as well as other situations, past life situations. This is something that I have both seen before, and I have seen it where this is a valid presentation of how some entities manifest and live in combination with their human counterpart.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and I think another thing that's important to stress is there's a choice being made and another choice can be made. So, we were not here to present this and have everybody think that there's entities in their field. There are people who have them, and if they choose differently, then they don't have them. So, and Susan works wonderfully with this. I do different kinds of energy work, but similar. And we were talking earlier about permissions. And permissions lead to claiming your sovereignty, and then you get to choose. So we're not here to frighten anybody. What we're here to do is show people something that's interesting.
Yeah. That is actually, something that we're able to notice and see. Now, the reason I actually called this valid was Many times when I work with people who had entities in their field, they might want, a lot of times those entities were being revealed to be cleared from the field, and because that person made the personal choice. But there are other people who have entities in their field where they're working together.
Yeah. And we would term that overlighting, or,
we would, but I'm going to say one other thing, which is that all of creation is created by the creator. I don't know, whatever your personal view is on that, but that all experiences are valid and in a state of non-judgment. What I would say is that I have worked with people who had entities in their field, knew that there was an entity in the field, and was completely okay with that, because that was their deal. That was their deal, that they were working with that entity. It was in their field, and for whatever their sole purpose was. I remember one person I worked with, and I was like, you have a huge entity in your field. And the person said, yeah. And I said, well, are you okay with that? And they were like, yeah.
Yeah, and it brings back to what I had said earlier, the idea that there are so many different ways of setup, not just for human life, paths, but energetic setups, and agreements with, other energies that are helpers, so everybody's different, and it's all good. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. So anyway, we can have another discussion on the evolution of human consciousness and humanity at another point. So, but yeah, I thought this was amazing to catch on photo, and I have no idea how that got on my photo. I just was snapping away as fast as I could. So, there's one other really quickly set of photos, which was. This is a slightly different theme, but it's obvious graphics edits to the photos. So
let's be clear here. Everybody talks about, that's Photoshopped. That's Photoshopped in a regular flat visual representation. And I know people kind of understand the concept of CGI because they're looking at a ton of, sci-fi, movies. But on a daily basis, the ability to Photoshop video for presentation in the news is not only they not only have the ability, but they are doing it. So Susan caught two representative examples, and I think it's important for people to understand, just because you see something on the TV does not mean that it ever happened.
Yeah. So it's interesting because these the taking the photos this way reveals the energetic presence, but it's also revealing physical presences that have been inserted. So here's an example of in this photo. You can see. Do you see how see this woman here, the blonde woman? She has clearly just been cut and pasted in. And look at this. See the arm? This has been cut and these arms have been cut and pasted in. It's possible that this man has been cut and pasted in under the cowboy hat. So there was a person under there, but this man, for whatever reason, this person was cut and pasted in. This person appears, not sure if this person is, because they do have some of the glowiness, but some of these people appear to be cut and pasted in. They're not presenting the way that the rest of the audience is.
Yeah, so, I mean, the thought here is that the visuals that were captured in the filming of that event did not give the appropriate feelings that they wanted to anchor in their marketing, so they inserted a woman with a flag to bring up certain emotions in the viewer.
Or they changed the person holding the flag to be a blonde lady. Yeah.
So they're always trying to, or just in general, trying to anchor a certain feeling, an emotive feeling. And if the visual doesn't fit that, then there's edits made so that it does.
That's what it looks like from, just looking at these pictures. And here's another really interesting one here. Now you can see what most of the audience looks like, and then you can see that some of these people here are, look, there's just a face pasted in. You see these appear to be faces that are just pasted in. They're not animated with the energy the way the rest of the people who are actually there are. And it could be that that it allows, because of the technology, pasting faces in allows you to see better, or it could be, that they want you to think the audience looks a certain way because all of these people have some similar characteristics.
Yeah. You think?
And then this man here also appears to not have been filmed at the same time as the audience, which I thought was interesting because you see the technology here, the way that his image presents in the video is totally different than the way that everyone else in the background presents. So yeah, I thought that was fascinating.
There's no representative energy there at all.
There's none. There's no aura. There's no light coming through, any of his body openings, the eyes, the mouth, the hands and such. So anyway, let's go back to here, and I think it's time we wrapped up.
Yeah, so get the hit and take some photos and check them out with your friends. There's a lot of really interesting stuff.
There's a lot of interesting stuff that's being revealed now. Both the truth of things are being revealed in all their different facets. So thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your being here.
Yeah, be well.
This is Solaris. Thanks for watching today. If you would like and subscribe, that'd be awesome. It's been so great hanging out with you. And come on over to the blog at solarismodalis.com.